Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to our study of Proverbs, the sayings. That section, chapter 10 to 29. Feel all these sayings, sometimes one verse, sometimes many verses. Still, just nice, important sayings, which are sometimes contrasted one with the other. Look at different themes, and some of them are contrasted. We start with diligence and laziness, and we're going to do it again now. We're going to look at wickedness compared to righteousness, which actually happens exclusively in chapter 10 and 11. So in this video, we'll focus on all of them coming up in chapter 10, which is almost every verse. And next video, all of them in chapter 11, which is again, almost every verse. We're going to look at these contrasts, reminding ourselves these are sayings, truisms, not absolutes. Many times they're even just observation. Usually that's what it looks like. But we're also going to remind ourselves and notice that these contrasts are not always one for one. Like for example, the righteous does this, the wicked does that. There'll be some of that, but not always. And those that kind of break the mold, they don't follow the pattern, they call us to pay attention. Why is it different? We won't have all the answers, but we'll try to figure it out. Why is he breaking the pattern? And we start with one of those actually. In verse 2, it says this: treasures gained by wickedness do not profit, but righteousness delivers from death. It's like you're riding along and then there's a big bump. Because when you start seeing this kind of treasures gained by wickedness, you would think that he would say the same thing. But treasures gained by righteousness, but he doesn't. He goes from something very specific, treasures, to something very general, just being righteous itself. He goes from this idea of having profits, or not having them, to life itself, when he says about being delivered from death. He is showing us one thing that we're going to keep in mind, put in our pocket, and that's the idea that righteousness gives life. That's important. But still sees a contrast, right? This wicked person trying to do it wickedly will not get it. And on the contrary, just being righteous will give you life. Now we continue with the next one for one when we read this. The Lord does not let the righteous go hungry, but he thwarts the craving of the wicked. Even though this expression craving seems general, it does seem like it's a one for one, right? The righteous will not go hungry, but the wicked one will. And all that by the hand of the Lord. That's important. The Lord will make sure the righteous is provided for. And this will remind ourselves, this is not an absolute. Some righteous Christians are feeling hunger right now around the world, and throughout history as well happened. The same way that the wicked was not always thwarted by God, somehow were blessed. But on a general term, we do know that the Lord is for his righteous people and actively against the wicked. He resists the proud, but he's gracious to the humble. We continue with blessings on the head of the righteous, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Now, here again, we see a brokenness in the contrast. Even though it's speaking about righteousness and wickedness, it says on one side, there's blessings on the head of the righteous, but then speak about the mouth. And the mouth of the wicked conceals, hides violence. It's not the same thing. But there's in a sense, it is. Because this blessing that's upon the righteous, as we will keep seeing moving along, it'll bless others. But on the other side, you gotta be careful of the wicked, because he wants to harm others. Take note of that phrase, by the way. Concealing violence. We'll put it in the right bucket. We got life, we got violence. We continue. The memory of the righteous is a blessing, but the name of the wicked will rot. This is more one for one. Because you understand that memory and the name, it's the same thing. It is who they are and how we know them and remember them. On one side, the righteous, it's going to be a blessing. You're going to remember him with fond memories. But the wicked himself gets to the point, his very memory, his very name, us remembering him will rot out, will die out. We don't even know he even existed. So one is fond memories, the other is he completely disappears from existence. It dies out. Contrast with life. Keep that in your left pocket for now. Because as we continue, we see whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but he who makes his way crooked will be found out. We continue to see there's such a contrast between the righteous, even though it doesn't say righteous here, walks in integrity. He walks in the light. He walks in the way God says, and he doesn't mind people seeing him. And that person is secure. Now compared to the person that walks in crookedness, walks behind, completely turned from God's way, which is why I would say it's wickedness. They will be found out. One has the security of saying, even people find out stuff about me, they'll find out that I'm faithful to God. But on the other side, remember that guy who conceals the violence. He's afraid of being found out. We continue. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. And here it is again, what we had in our right pocket. But this time it's more of a one-for-one contrast, right? Where both the mouth is in play. One gives life by what he says, wisdom of course, but the other one wants to hurt and kill. He's just trying to hide it. Because as we saw, that's what the wicked does. Not only do they do wicked things, they want to hide that wickedness. They don't want people to see how deeply depraved they really are. While the other one is coming out. He doesn't mind people seeing it. There's security and assurance in that. Because his words, they give life instead of want to take life with violence. We continue. The wage of the righteous leads to life. The gain of the wicked to sin. At this point, you would say it seems one for one, right? Wages, gain, same thing. Righteous, wicked, contrast. Life, death, sin. Now, the life part comes back to that left pocket. And we're not even finished yet. How righteousness gives life and has life in it. But wicked goes to sin? Is the wickedness itself sin? Yeah. And sin gets more sin. And we know the wages of sin is death, exactly. As it says in the Psalms, and then picked up in Romans. So you get more sin until you end up drowning in it. Wickedness always gets worse. We continue. The tongue of the righteous is choice silver. The heart of the wicked is of little worth. That's that we've been seeing already, right? How the mouth of the wicked, his tongue, will be a blessing to others, while the wicked, who wants to hurt people, he only brings nothingness. Actually, worse, harm and destruction instead. So we're seeing a pattern here. As we continue, the lips of the righteous feed many, but the fools die for lack of sense. Now the contrast is broken again, not one for one. We've already seen how the righteous brings food and life and a fountain of life to the people. What comes out? Because it's the truth of God, the truth he lives out, it brings good. But the fool that lacks sense, which goes well with the lips, because these lips, they're preaching wisdom, but they have no sense. The wicked, the fools in this case. What happens to him? No, he dies. Again, life for the righteous, death. He wants to bring death, but he'll experience death. The wages of sin is death. We continue. What the wicked dreads will come upon it, but the desires of the righteous will be granted. Not only this one for one, but we also remind ourselves these are not absolutes. Not everything that we desire as righteous Christians will automatically be given to us. That's not the way it works. The same way we can't say for sure everything the wicked dreads will always fall upon him. But generally speaking, the wicked filled with dread, people will find out, people want to harm him. It ends up coming against him because God is against him, right? He thwarts them. Compared to the righteous, which God wants to care for and bless and provide for. We continue. When the tempest passes, the wicked is no more, but the righteous is established forever. Because again, when something bad happens, when a trial, a tempest happens, it really exposes who is established. And that's important, I think. The tempest happens, the wicked is no more. He's uprooted. But then when you go to the righteous, it seems like he's going to stay because he's already established forever. Because he's already rooted. Makes me think of what the Lord says at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. That he who listens and puts into practice his words is like someone who builds on a rock. And even though the storm comes, he doesn't get pulled away. That's the righteous. Compared to the wicked, that's taken away. We'll take note of that. Our right pocket dignity, we'll put it there. This notion of the wicked being taken away. As we move on to the next one. The hope of the righteous brings joy, but the expectation of the wicked will perish. Again, one for one contrast and something we've already seen, another pattern building before us. A pattern of hope and desires and expectations and fears. While the wicked will not get what he wants, he will be thwarted by the Lord, he'll suffer what he fears, the righteous can have that hope, a hope that will be fulfilled sometimes. Maybe not what he wants, when he wants it, but so God will take care of him. So there's joy in that. Because the wicked is so opposed to God, he needs to fear. But the righteous can be hopeful in his God. Next one says, the righteous will never be removed. But the wicked will not dwell in the land. Now, I'll pick that up on my right bucket again. Right? Because the wicked is taken out of the land. The same way he will be removed when the tempest comes. Compared to the righteous, that is never, just like the forever established part. Which kind of brings us back to the cursing and the blessing God gives to Israel before they enter the promised land, right? If you obey, you will be blessed. One of the blessings, you will stay in the land forever. But if you disobey, in a constant basis, you will be removed from the land. Like they were in exiles, and then after, when the Romans came. The cursing is on the wicked. Next one says, the mouth of the righteous brings forth wisdom, but the perverse tongue will be cut off. It's not one for one, but it still brings us a pattern again, right? How what comes out of the righteous is life, it's wisdom, it feeds many. But we see how the wicked will hurt himself, right? Because the perverse tongue will be cut off. He will die. He will go deeper in sin and destroy himself. That's what wickedness does. This brings us to the last verse of the chapter and also of our study. The lips of the righteous know what is acceptable, which we've seen again and again. But the mouth of the wicked, what is perverse? Exactly. We've been seeing the wicked does not know the truth of God, and therefore nothing that comes out of him will be good and right. Because he doesn't even know that right way of living. While the righteous, who knows God's ways, lives it, will always speak it. So what do we learn from these contrasts? Only a few things. We've learned that there's a clear contrast, a difference between both righteous and wickedness. Do not pass over that. We've also learned one has stability, right? It doesn't get removed. The tempest comes, it doesn't change everything, while the other doesn't. It's constantly being moved or removed, and there's always consequences for them. We've also learned that one has rewards while the other is consequences. Always seems to be rewards for the righteous, right? Always seems to be consequences for the wicked. We've also learned one blesses the others, right? Especially what comes out of his mouth, while the other is a danger. He's hiding violence. His own tongue will be cut off. He will even die from it. We've also learned that there's openness about one. He walks in sincerity. He doesn't mind if people know, while the other one is hiddenness. He conceals his violence. He doesn't want to get found out. He fears that. We've seen that one has God's favor and the other is curse. Of course, God is for one, is against the other, which includes life and death, as we've seen over and over again. And lastly, one has hope. The other has only fears. One has these desires that will be fulfilled, while the other will only be worried because it will never work out. Or he can always have that worry, maybe it won't work out. Okay, but what does this mean for me, though? As a believer, I'm not wicked. But do we take it seriously, though? Because the New Testament tells us, put to death the deeds of the flesh and put on Christ's likeness. And it's no in between, though. And that's the problem, isn't it? We try to put on some good Christ-like, loving each other, serving in our church, praying and reading the Bible, while still approving some of the deeds of the flesh. But as we've seen, the first one, that I said, don't go past it. There's a contrast. There's a black and white, light and darkness. Paul says in Romans 6, either you give yourself over to the flesh as a slave, or it's going to be the Spirit. One or the other. No in between. And there will be consequences. When we let the flesh get the best, we will hurt ourselves and others. Again, sin begets more sin, becomes death. Even John talks about it in 1 John. A sin unto death, he says. No one's really sure what it means, but it sounds very bad. Because he even says not to pray for that. A Christian can destroy himself from this sin unto death. It is something to take seriously. May Lord examine our hearts and show us if there's places of wickedness and darkness that needs to die, so we can turn into the righteousness that we are called to, dear brothers and sisters. On this note, be blessed.